Rashin Chimata Drea Yomara. Oh, teaching medal at Tungas. Tunga Yena, that I knew Movation on the junior Tunga, Pumbutin Days Lunch at Dayana. Tina around with Archie Ocean Yoma Resora. Teaching medal at Tunga Tunga Dame songs. Oh, Tunga Yende, let a new Mubonga Pumbuchi Kunjetilia, Tidur of Yang Denges in this uncle. Round Yoma Resongara. Teacher medal Tunga in the Dame songs. Oh, to the metabocation bush, Samlatana. And it don't the quag ne longula so what to Samlatan Benet. Metaba Samlatan, the Tunga, the Yamdunam de Gora, Pengora. Tunga de Abo Samlacona, da me bas, Rawan and Jung had Rawan of Shivichi, some day the echo, and the Meva Tonga Chile, Bequa Yabungora. Oh, the Sanjin Duce Tamja Metawas, Sarje Tamja Tunga was. Sakja tamje tunga sakpaside leda nyemu bongi chunga tamje ne lulo ju samasungara tunga was. Dije tamje mido sakja de chu tamje tongshi dame bas. Ne koe debe chu de sama tamje de tongshi dame ba. Rangi chashe dang rangwe tade do meba che. Chashe do rangwe dangi do meba che. Da ngabu kari ne kangbo tishi ne. Kangbo chashe de kangbo rangi ngo tubyo mara. Dile shen ji chen be kangpa senge ji be loga she yo maro. O tezu kangal cha chok yo ra. Di che temje me da bo sa che temje tung o chu temje tong shi da me ba. Da kare sen nyangen le de bo shi shi ke wa da nyamo se ne. Tezu kangal me ba chi. Le da nyamo bo wange pungpun do len che me go chu na ten do te wa de tarwa de da rawang ne to ba de se go ra. O ya o te chi la no manda de.
So here, thinking about impermanence, I mean, sometimes we are born as a human being out of our grasping at a self, really that kind of affliction. We then engage in virtuous actions, and those virtuous actions in turn ripen into a good rebirth. Whereas we can have a situation where grasping at a self, we engage in non-virtuous actions, and that leads to a lower birth. However, it is the case that even a good rebirth is something that is driven by our various afflictions. It is out of our sense of an I and grasping at a self and wanting good for that that we then engage in positive actions, which in turn lead us to a good rebirth. However, when we begin to contemplate this kind of a process, and particularly the way in which we should understand that which is impermanent as being suffering. I mean, it is the case that yes, sometimes we are born as a human being, right? Sometimes those causes and conditions come about, but that again is not stable, lasting happiness because it is impermanent. It is something that is subject to destruction. And so here, as Dharmakirti has taught in his Pramanavartika, he explains how it is that based upon recognizing that all particularly composite phenomena are impermanent, that we can then come to understand suffering, and from understanding suffering get to the understanding of selflessness. And so here it is the case that as samsaric beings, we are subject to suffering, right? We are impermanent in that we are dependent upon various causes and conditions. And it is the case that in particular we are under the control of karma and the afflictions. It is the case that we take rebirth due to the force of those karma and afflictions, and thereby taking up these aggregates uncontrollably. Really, this is something wherein we recognize their impermanence, and their impermanence due to the fact that they are driven by various causes. In this case, these causes are karma and afflictions, means that we take up various aggregates, and we do so in a way in which it feels to us like there's an autonomous kind of an I, but it is something that there's no sort of control there. There's no real I, but rather it is the case that we are propelled through this samsaric existence in a way in which those aggregates are impermanent and they are subject to suffering given that they are contaminated. And in here, contaminated in particular is referring to being under the control of karma and the afflictions. And so here, as the Buddha taught, all composite phenomena are impermanent and all contaminated phenomena are in the nature of suffering. And all phenomena are empty and selfless, and nirvana is peace. We can lead sort of from that perspective of impermanence into an understanding of suffering and the way in which contaminated phenomena, those that are under the control of karma and the afflictions, are in the nature of suffering. And they are also empty and selfless. Like in the case of something like a house, right? We designate a house onto a collection of various parts, but the house isn't any of those parts. It can't be something essentially existent in and of itself, separate and aside from those parts, nor is it anywhere located within or it as any of those parts. And so here, coming to recognize that kind of reality, one pacifies those afflictive emotions that one has been under the control of and attains definite lasting freedom, that of nirvana. So here, our contemplation of impermanence can really lead into an understanding of selflessness.
Oh yeah, oh that is so. Oh, they in the cars, Simja Tamja Tando. So, don't do Tungenge, Gangu say, and they couldn't danger. Sanji go on Chinaja Tobarsha. They each do any cars or Gumuludu Zebe. Oh, Tini, Delia Tebata, Samba, Gumbe Rimji Jupachagi, some. Oh, Kum said them the December shoes. Yeah.
So, therefore, we should think that for the sake of all sentient beings, I want to attain this state of Buddhahood, a Buddha who has removed all faults, who has developed all good qualities, and is able to thereby have the ability to benefit all sentient beings through that knowledge. And in order to do that, I'm going to listen to these teachings, particularly on this text by the Venerable Nagarjuna, with the intention of listening to them, contemplating them, taking them up into practice in order to be able to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Oh yeah, Tangan to Dimba. Shuluka, Ngabjungab Shidimba. Oh, Takan do it. Ngabjungab Shidira. Tati number me bene, so Tangmate, Lagum, Tamalam teacher. Te number me bene, say, and a car said, oh, Wongjur, Sai Tapur Juruse, and a Pagbe, Tenge, To Shepe, and a car, Love Chucho, Chamber Juruse. Oh, Takadi Dreba Malo Shanti. Te number me bene, Sati Tobalatene, Te Debudis or a Karkari and Grisana. Te number me bene, Devala Wongjurve, and Devala Wongjurve, Sai Tapur Jurus. The Bekomlia, Wang Jung Sai Tapo, Wang Jimbu get in the Yoku. Tea in the Zanko, Cheshe, Damachi, Simjig turned to a love chimbu took to Gora. Teacher and I'm young as any Gabuchaya that she says, Koa Tiliaco, Shenja General. That Simjig turned to a shadow. Anything the Kaje, Wang Yushimbu, Wang Yunani Kanga, Lega, will love Chimbuche or teacher as you are the. Joro Shera. 그러니까 박배 dembangan bar tokbe 박배 demba실 soba 어때서배 다시 타와 자침부 신도 사부 어때서 강가시에 개배 피도 침번 줄게 돼서라 로면 박배 투 주조 침부 어때 대달 개배 주조 개배 나네 배 탈침부 가서라 어다 좋은 데 같은데 줄게 돼서 그거라 뭐 뒤질람는 데서 담마데
Mm.
저와데 에 넘버 민베니 원주로 라에 답을 주루세 와 아니 박배 땡을 또 시베스 박배 dem바실라 소바 제조 또 시베 로베 추조 신부죠 개배 추조 개배 피트 침바 가서래 개배 난데 초도 주가 좋은데 어딘데 줄 그래서 되도
Mm.
야
So here then picking up in the text, we'll pick up with verse 454, which is the second verse related to the seventh ground, the far advanced. And this is getting into what matures, what kind of maturational qualities this has. So here it says, through the maturation of that ground, they become the powerful ruler of the celestials. They become a great leader of the jnanacharyas, knowing the realizations of the aryas for truths. So here, as far as what are the ripening results of obtaining this seventh ground, we find here, again, with each of these grounds, there is becoming like a powerful ruler of the celestials in this case, a great leader of the Yanacharyas. And this here is referring to, like, a king wanting to become such a powerful kind of authoritative or powerful being is not out of attachment to samsara, but having that kind of position of power is something that allows you to do really impactful work for the benefit of other sentient beings. So here, this kind of desire, it's not about a desire just to have that sort of status or authority, but to be in a position to really make an impact for other sentient beings. That's where these kinds of maturational results come about. And so they are said to be then sort of like a great leader, a sort of the foremost among those knowledgeable scholars, knowing the realizations of the Aryas for truth. So they become like the best, the supreme, the main among these knowledgeable scholars, one could say.
Oh, yeah, but in it, ngapchunganga tishin keba shunisa, ta sa keba shegdwa,
Mhm.
sa keba de mingdila shunisa sigdwa. Tishin keba shunisa, any meyo wade, medo shirise. Meyo tishin ludane, ngausim chuyu sammi caps. Oh, chili, tatin devana malo shinako lelamdo. No, keba de kare sa keba sira. Tila shunisa sigra. Deshindu shunisa miwa de shunisa sede nyamu tasa keba ne nyamu pansara nyamu mabamba do nyamu gishama do tenge tesole chiba sere she tatine kasore sa keba topsade nyamu pansade sa ene ngado namje bu chiba ene shunu che chigirwa oti shunisa res nyamu pani nyamu shama do chudenge tape nyamu pansara oti sere Shunesa, Mewas na tenzi pansa tu sa temba trube samluti wange, rawa tu truban tembe samluti wange chakdang ta chi kia da tesu yo marwa, tenzi ki wange, tangzi ki wange, Mewa, sem shen tu yo meke wala soba tende chua tesu kanga sam che sa ra, Mewa di tenzi sebar, pang be, pang ba se, tembar me do bechir se, Mewa se de tembar to mar, ta tenzi yo mara. Tenzi pansara, lo de lo dire da, tenzi de nyendu shawi wara, tenzi ki paksha tuzu da, tena tuzu kanga te shitibil shawi wara. Namgyu kanzu uma ba shendayi na, tenzi shitib tuzu shawi ra. Te uma tenjo lo le te kaka rwa. O te lukchi shisha che, nyeba chende yaga rwa, mato mambu sida ane chuya nyaga wara. Uma tendu re. O tene tendu so. Te shin, Teshindu luda nga da semji chuyu samji mecha badan den la ase. O di ta tsawa. Tishin keba shunu sa meyo wade meto shir tembar nabu meto. Ra. Mune meyo teshin luda ne nga sem chuyu sam mecha ase. O tish yunu ya.
So here then next is 455, which is the eighth ground. So it says then the eighth is the youth's ground, the immovable, because free of conceptions, they are unshakable. The range of their physical, verbal, and mental activities is inconceivable. So here, this eighth ground is sometimes called the youth's ground or the immovable. Now here, this is calling it the youth's ground, is sort of in contrast to the grounds below, wherein bodhisattvas still had grasping at true existence, and they're sort of referred to as being childlike because of that. And so here they have graduated beyond being under the control of that grasping at true existence. They haven't yet removed all of the kinds of imprints or seeds of that, but they have removed that manifest grasping at true existence and the kind of afflictions that come from that. So they thereby are not movable by their grasping at true existence. They don't conceptualize any sort of true existence. They're unmovable by that. So here it's important to note that going based on the Prasangika presentation, this grasping at true existence is considered to be an afflictive obscuration. And the imprints of that, the kind of latencies or seeds of grasping at true existence, are considered to be the obscurations to omniscience. Whereas for other Madhyamaka schools, like the Svatantrikas, they would assert that actually grasping at true existence is that's part of that is the obscuration to omniscience. And so if we don't have that kind of clear, we can get in danger of mixing these things up. But here, then, according to this school, they are no longer sort of movable. They're not perturbed by that grasping at true existence, because an eighth ground bodhisattva has graduated to being a youth. They have passed beyond that kind of grasping at true existence, or they have eliminated all of the afflictions.
Oh, yeah. 당업 중에 주더라. 쇼로가. 대 넘버 메베네 쇼도. 더디 사드 톰네 데부도 가리 용고를 세나셔라. 넘버 메베네 세. 동계다고 동성지 동천부세를 동체라. 동계다고 창벌이요서. 사회 창원부 대신에 창벌세 창벌을 쏘고 텐데 일이 저렇게 세버려. 네. 좀 라상 계속에 된된 배불라 톡바 메세. 자충바랑 산게다 년도다 대주 자충바도 시거라. 대주게네 대주게 텔레이 톡바 메다 데반나 누구도 오다. 대 넘버 메베네 동기다 뭐 창바리 요로셔라. 년도 자충바신 데를 가르세 녀라 자충바도 동이 도요라. 동반이 도요라. 탑기 차네. 잠바다 닝지 첨부로 셴데고 장주고 셈라서 뭐 탑기차네 아니 장주 셈바 총람바도 저게 봐 시기네 두고라 사주도 인데에 시력기 전에 시기네 두고 말아 시력기 전에 사케번에 시기네 거기서 와라 남기 투도 셴다이네 투바 멤버 트라션바도 동니 참모도 마도세리요라 단디 우마 땡겨로와 동반이 내로 타두리 또고요래 때 마도는 퀄리티 두고 말아 어디서 이나 탑단 실험 얘기 나네 탑기 전에 세진된 거래 전주 선박에 심지어 탐지에 그때 삼단 거라랑 녀란도 저다 심지어 탐지에 소소때 가르쳐내 쪼르고 제도고 알아 지단 심지어를 잡아다 니시다 근데 세마버도 요하래 이나 어디도 가서 그래 퀄리티다 대 넘버 멤버 어디 되셔라 야 되셔 아니 자좀라서 계속해서 팀에 자좀바다 팀에 년도 자좀바다 란제 자좀바다 저게서요라 아니 가서 그래서네 된데 벨라 초바 메세 네루 타둘라서 바테 템바실라서 바테 네루 텐레 페바테 저게 콘조게 이 초바 메세 오 콘조라 할레 데바테 메바체 콘조 세기 네투 마레스고라 데바테 오덴도 대 넘버 메베네 동기다부 상벌교로 년도 자좀바다 라상제 소지 최지 때랑 베발라세 네로 덴바실라 소바 동반일라 소바 텐데 텐라 베발라야 아니 톡바메서 콘조 빼 네로 타르신 텐데 텐라 베투고도 삼사 이 톡바메시오라 되게 세기네 도마 예라도 자좀바 수 세기네 도마레세 되게 이 톡고 마레세 야 텐데
So then continuing into 456, it says then, Through the maturation of this ground, they become a Brahma who rules a kilocosm. They are unsurpassed by the hearts, by the hearers and solitary realizers in determining the meaning of the Dharma. So here they are, as it explains in this verse, they are not sort of led astray by, or their minds can't be captivated by the kind of reasoning undertaken by hearers and solitary realizers. Now, here, again, first, the ripening result is to become this kind of great ruler, a powerful ruler Brahma who rules several, and the names of these vast amounts of cosmic space, a kilocosm here. And so too, at the eighth ground, one becomes such that they outshine or surpass hearers and solitary realizers in terms of their wisdom. Now, here again, looking from the perspective of the Prasangika presentation, hearers and solitary realizers realize emptiness. They realize subtle emptiness. And although it is the case that a bodhisattva beginning at the first ground, or even before the path of accumulation, can outshine a hearer and a solitary realizer in terms of the method side, it is the case that hearers and solitary realizers also realize the same sort of subtle emptiness. Whereas when it comes to other philosophical schools, they would assert that actually hearers and solitary realizers do not realize the most subtle emptiness. And so bodhisattvas outshine those kinds of practitioners, both in terms of their wisdom and in terms of their kind of method side of this. Again, a bodhisattva whose concern is with all sentient beings equal to the extent of space, that kind of vast aspiration and the method side is going to outshine those who are on this fundamental vehicle pursuing their own liberation alone. However, it is the case that when they are determining the nature of reality, looking at the Four Noble Truths or looking at emptiness and so forth, any sort of presentation that they might make, that they might lay out there, is not going to captivate the minds of, or sort of enthrall those bodhisattvas who have reached this eighth level. Whereas it might be possible for them to have some kind of a draw or captivate the minds, enthrall those who are below this. An eighth ground bodhisattva is secure enough that they are not in any way so it's not just that they're not surpassed by hearers and solitary realizers, but they're also not captivated by them. They don't get led astray from their own path.
Oh yeah. Oh, 다시 올까 ngapchung te ba. Sta kuba de shegdo.
Mm,
Sa kuba ne se de ra. Sa kuba ne legba ye lotus ming de shegdo. Sa kuba legba lotus sembre. She cha kesab shin se. Da kyawa de ra ba kyabu de shin kyabu chabli an do to lepto yo ron do la ke de chire de wara. Tuso. O de ne kang chire so so yang da re se. So so yang da re. 소소 양답에 리버시 세라 라 칙소소 리버시라 대한다 칙다 지대수 상마 만데버시라고 신토가 됐습니다. 퇴배 딜라 로드 상세 토베스로 소소 양답에 리버시라 소바 토베 딜라 로드 상부시요 레세라 로드 상 구바시라 사쿠바네 레베 로드 시차데세 개비부 네 개섭도 왕꾸르와 케바 신도세 개비 부디 개부게네 섭리아 도에 타니불레 도요데스라 단 돌라 케레스 도anga 좀 돌라 케레스 립도 요르다 세튼다라 아니 비섭도 왕꾸와라 케바 신도세 뭐텐디도 케바 신도 로세체비 왕꾸와 케바 오세 로세체비 왕꾸와 리아다 고 lep데요레 타니불 lep데요레 소라 돌라케레 세르치라 도쳐져레 세르치 남기 먼저 배gel이야 돌라케스 그래 돌라케레스다 어디지 강게 체리나 소소 양다베 리퀘시 네 조바르 토베 딜라 로드 상보시 자오세 로드 상보세 레베 로드 시시도 하거든 Mingdelia, Ganga, Dasha nature, Sikta Tola Soba, Samatolia, Toba Meba, Nata Medra, the Lord of Chimbujura, Sanjay, Taji, when you were Legiora, or this Chikuna, this one.
So then next we have the ninth ground. The first verse regarding this comes in 457. It says, the ninth, like a regency, is called excellent intelligence, since by attaining true awareness, these bodhisattvas have excellent understanding on this ground. So here, this ninth ground then is referred to as sort of like a regency, in that they are about to go to the kind of obtainment of this special sort of empowerment, one could say, and with this great light empowerment. And so here on the ninth ground, which is called good intelligence, in particular, they have obtained various, types of discriminating awareness and intelligence, such that they're not wrong about anything. They're the four correct knowledges and so forth that they have obtained. And so here, they are sort of like about to go to this next stage of gaining this sort of light empowerment. And so since as well, they have obtained completely the four complete or perfect ways of knowing, this is given the title of good intelligence or excellent intelligence.
Oh, yeah. The number members that is Satelia, level of Satelia, and then Yonde Karkar, Debu Kandiga, Shandu Chebal, and Debu Karkar to Gurisana. Tony be Tabu Sangbala Sobat in the Yugresera. Simje Samba Tibalasa, the Simje gets to Tiwala Sobat in the Tibina, Telapalanga, the Sura. Trajum Soji, Toba Mese, Nyandu Rangi Trajum Batuzola, Yitobo Yomarestandi. Local things around Umatenjo Luciana. Shirab Gichana Nyandu, the Rangis of Place Nyandu Solom, the Satan, when you were somebody, Hala, Sara, the Tabgicho de Martiche Matochi. Namju Inako to the Shada in a Yati Tombani Toba Shirab Timele Yomaro, Rapachimato Tomaro, or this was a coach, Tikeshika Medua. Tanda the Shirab Gichane could Saya Kachile and Mato Sigina to Medua. Shirabchana Sigina to Mar Kondobe Yatachi Tarchibere Yaguara, Tisoda, this Sigina to Maris, a Kachamamu Sara. The number member Tony Tabu somebody Jurse, Semje somebody Tiba Lasa, DJ comes some medicine to it until Laja to Sora. Trajum Soji, Togwa Mese, Yara Trajum Basogi, to Simjang to Laja to Sula, Yitogwa Mese. The number member Tony Jitabu Sangban Jurose, to Semje somebody Balase, to Jesufa. Kuna samji chua tribala. Jawadan triba soje kone trachumba soje chokwa medos. O tene samba le yabu jama tu bhatara. Pindiga sida. Kone triba nundu yungu de samsada. O tende shane yara trachumba tu pekeba yore. Tezuki yi chokwa yo ma rese wara. O tezu te sigi ne tugu ma rese wara. Taspe yente shirab jishane che tombule ke shira. Oh, this gonna.
So then, turning next to the verse that describes the kind of benefits that come, the maturation. So it says, through the maturation of this ground, they become the lord of a bi-kilocosm. They are unsurpassed by arhats and such regarding qualms in the minds of beings. So here, again, we need to remember that according to the Prasangikas, hearers and solitary realizers realizers also have this realization of emptiness. It is not the case that, as other philosophical schools assert, that even bodhisattvas much earlier on the path outshine hearers and solitary realizers by means of their wisdom, because those other schools would assert that bodhisattvas are realizing something that is more subtle, more profound than is realized by hearers and solitary realizers. However, it is the case that here, because prasangikas assert that hearers and solitary realizers also have that realization of emptiness, when it comes to, again, first, the first kind of maturation is that becoming a lord of a bi-kilocosm. And then this second half where it says they are unsurpassed by arhats and such regarding regarding qualms in the minds of sentient beings. So it's not like they could be sort of enthralled or led astray by some answer that a hearer or solitary realizer would give, say, to a question that is given by a sentient being, but rather bodhisattvas at this level would always be able to give a good answer to any question that might be posed by a sentient being. And so they're not able to be sort of turned around, undermined, or outshone by those hearers and solitary realizers in terms of their wisdom at this level.
Oh, yeah. 다 ngabchungagudirā, dine isaya. Chuba choji tenyi desa, ta sa chuba tisayadwa, di mingdili choji tenyi sigawara, sayi mingdili, chuba choji tenyi desa. Tamba choji charmbesi, tamba choji charmbe bala ta, sanje dan dandra sanje doyawara, didi chuba chadu sigawara. Tamba choji charmbe bala chiri, chanju samba sanje ki, Yeshe dāki wāngurchis. Chanchu sambatiliāni sāngyēki sāmatamjēki sāngyēka lamasundāni wāngkūgu resi, Yeshe chimbi wāngkūrkiri isē. Sūri, tādin dreba mālo shanti hākūri. Chuba sā chuba chūji tīnsikiri isē, sāi mīndiliā. Tīn chimbuli tēni chārba babgirwa, tīnāshi Yeshi tīn chimbu tabda shirabi tīn chimbuli tēni āni tūchaliā kāla kāndiri chūji chārbabki waris tīchāni sikdā. choji tenyi desi. Chati de charishabu juwanda. Chati timba mabu, charba pavega timba mabu sosona, ne chaba chimbu babgirwa, baba tar serwa. Jikdenji kiwe lodo pege chido, jikdenbe kiwe samlugi lodo diya pege chido, ne choji charishabu babgirwa eso wada. Pege chido, tambe choji char bebe chire, choji tenshi chawo oso. Sahi mingdelia choji tenshi atiris, o dichituna.
So then next is the 10th ground. So here in 459 it reads, the 10th is the cloud of Dharma because bodhisattvas rain down the holy Dharma, and these bodhisattvas are anointed with rays of light by the Buddhas. So here it is the case that a 10th ground bodhisattva is becoming very close to a Buddha's ability, which includes teaching to sentient beings, like providing this rain of the Dharma. So here, the 10th ground is called this cloud of Dharma because, like the way that when great rain clouds gather and they will pour down rain, so too, in order to really propagate, to increase the harvest of virtues of sentient beings within the world, they rain down the holy Dharma. And so this is why this is called the cloud of Dharma, this 10th ground. So it is from their great clouds of method and wisdom that bodhisattvas at the 10th level are then able to rain down the kind of Dharma in accordance with the needs of various disciples to make them turn toward virtue.
Oh, yeah. Well, Tandi, oh, the Tishik to Akarsura. Researching be one good Tantishik, researching be one course. The Kasanga to join one course, the Tizi one course, Dinner one goes to the research train, any one course to shake to researching be one course. Or the one could and the condition at Dilma shake to Sunday Tona Sachuba de Tona, Chanju Simba, Tingin se Tang Meba, Bunda, Chu Chiniba, Chiniba, Chinibe, Nicasa, me Yatachin, he could win out. Bunda Chu Chinibe, Nicasa, Tamala, Chanju Simba, Tingin 탐제 캠베 이시단 개발 매바 원고와단 덴바 다 상계의 페이지 개발 매바 상계 수절에 사로 어ten에 다 원고별 개발 매바 원고와단 덴바 시자와 응원도 주대에서 원고와 시자와단 덴바 어디 기타니 텔리 주레레서 거라 다 원간데스 구글에서나 대 응원도 줄마다 사치방 응원도 줄마다 동성 분들 주 되다 냠베 동성 분들 주의 세다 냠베서 거라 뜻이네 세다 냠베 네 렘보치 첨부 빼만 첨부세 다 렘보치 랑신체게 빼만 첨부세 당가라즈나 신 빼만 첨부세 레 라부치 티가 미테서 베 티데시 뭐다 고 렘보치 랑신체 빼메 랑신 방가라즈 롤마치 야 메다 요구도 어딘데 첨부인데 제 티가래 네 슈네세 계세도 가발에서 땡이제 탐제 케베이시단 케바르메바 원쿠르와단 덴바시에차와 응어도 주데시 땡이시자 응어도 주르마타 동숨기 문다 주 떠다냐베 디체다냐베 첨부스 빼마 첨부 냠바 렘보치 빼마 렘보치 남바 탐제기 초단덴바 랑신 렘보치레 주베 빼마 와 니텔이야 남바 탐제기 초단덴바 초 탐제는 제바 덴베 제바시 땡레서 와 남바 탐제기 초다 덴바 제바시 다랑시지 현다 타롭시지 대선부시랑시지 된데 여봐서 시자와 네 개벌 동성분의 주 상배 뒤 타롭지 신이지 빼매 코르단데보다 뒤내시 빼매 초조양 코르던데 수사가 된데 뭐 있다 덴바 교대스라 chanju semba luya teta samse pema chimbu teta samba chanju semba te luya teta samba chiga tene suwara ane tekan shugyo re suwara chanju semba luya teta samse te kendo paba ne so teta chimba shugyo re se tene te mene kare ta te tingin se 토마타 호텔 쇼니 땡땡지라 냠바샤네 땡지 토마타도 페마텔라 두버 군도 나무스 테네 페메콜리아 슈바데 삼제긴 통화 거래서 거라 슈그레서 거다 둔다 텔라 두바 다시 슈바 다시 거라 산제 좀 된데 산제기 군에 댄존데 산제 좀 된데 산제 망보 댄좀네 쇼네 다 배터리로 체체세와 다 산제 처음에 아니 왜세 법제 콜 원고 산제 원고 좀 된데 산제 좀 된데 그네 대 좀바 남긴 주부네 왜세 쇼네서 산제 주부 여러와 어때네 왜세 트는 콜이야 네 다 산제야 원고 투거래 개부 부두스 개부 꾸두스 잡아 망부 체체야 개불려 꾸그러와 어때네시 드디어 제치티치가 요새다 총네 산제 탐제근 주군에 요새 봐도 매번 트는데 원고제 그래서 원고wan 제도 시소 자주심바 대 산제지 요새 쳔부 원게 원고라체도 산제발에 요새 쳔부 원고를 제발해서 그래 야 된대서 드디어 랍샤나 정말
Hmm. So here then in the second half of this verse, it says, and these bodhisattvas are anointed with rays of light by the Buddhas. Now here, this is describing the kind of like empowerment or anointment that happens with light. I mean, these 10th ground bodhisattvas are like about to become Buddhas. They are getting very close to that state. And here, this is like in the way that in tantric texts, we often do empowerment or anointment through kind of the descent of nectars. This is going to be through lights that are emanated out from the sort of magical point on a Buddha's forehead. And so here it explains this in the commentary to the text that is talking about how it is the case that a bodhisattva at this point will remain on this, like, will be on this kind of jeweled lotus, a lotus that is equal in size to hundreds of thousands of worlds. Like, so they come to the point in which they have actually attained all of the kind of various meditative stabilizations, and at the end of that, then they are basically so close to a Buddha that they're almost equivalent in terms of what they are able to accomplish. And then taking this kind of seat on this jeweled lotus, and again, this is something that is hard for us to imagine, this very vast, large lotus that is in the nature of jewels. It's sort of something that can't quite fit in our minds, but they are in this, on this seat, this jeweled lotus seat that is and right before they actualize this, they are again on this kind of lotus that is equal to tens of thousands of the tri-kilocosms. And so this is an extremely expansive, vast kind of space, which is decorated together with all of these best jewels and so forth. And then coming forth, there will be, they are surrounded then by as many sort of lotus thrones as other bodhisattvas, as many as there are atoms in the world. And then these bodhisattvas, again, their body size is sort of equal to the lotus thrones upon which they sit. And they are then empowered through, as soon as they have obtained this meditative stabilization, they appear on that lotus. And the Buddhas then, having gathered together, empower them through light rays that radiate out from that special point. And so here it's sort of like when a king has or a prince, sorry, has engaged in various deeds that sort of show that they are ready to be king. They are appointed, they are put into that sort of position. And this is similar to that, in that a bodhisattva has reached such a stage, such a level, as they are almost equivalent to a Buddha. And this is the point at which they are anointed, appointed to then become actually a Buddha with this kind of light enthronement or empowerment.
Oh yeah, somebody. Yeah, that to tambadera. Oh, television. Te number member na. Nezan lai tabu ta telia tabu cha saki chi chu sung tinde se sate sigora. Ne tang me la to so kangal wan chua du gresera. Ne chwa me to wa ser tinde se chido. Ra de lai tabu jurche. Ene samye yishi yuji da wan chu chimbu cho ye no sa. Ka development di mata. De number member ne tang me lai tabu juru se ra. Te zoli che sung bol so te che. Samye yishi ne sanje yishi la samye yishi si ti ta de tin do. Te namba me be ne zang la ye ta bur jur samye yishi yu ji ta se te de. Samye yishi su kar se res ne. Samye yishi ne sanje yishi yin la se. Yu tu che ne wang gur we. Yu ji ta bur wang ju chen bu cho yin no so. Ta te ta bur yu ta ni bu le sa ra te lo wang gu ge de se. O te chi chu sha ya ten de do.
So then it reads in the next verse 460, through the maturation of that ground, they become the celestial ruler of the pure abode, master of inconceivable objects of wisdom, supreme among great lords. So here, the kind of through the maturation of attaining that 10th ground, they then become the celestial ruler of the pure abodes, of those kinds of pure divine abodes. And here, their inconceivable wisdom is really the wisdom of a Buddha. So taking those as objects, they are then again empowered as being supreme among great lords.
오야 다단다 아주 사주고 되셔서라
Mhm.
가셔다운 도저체 다도저 계시게 보면은 우먼족보다 더나 용구다 도서 변디 버셔 다 된도와들 사주셔서라 된다서 뛰니셔 된도와서 대가르성도서나 대다르 주분 대단해서 사주분 대단해서라 아니 전주 선배 사주 트라스 대주부터 전주 선배 사주 잡아래서 와라 가봐 잡아래서 가와서 그래서나 아니 그래서 어디 오든 데벨롭션들 대다 셰마 타고 사주부 대다네 전주 선배 사주 놀래 trashi chuto sachu bendo nalia trashi chu sumba nashini delukobe yen sungwara tendo wa tete ya wata tiskuna.
So then that finishes the presentation of the individual 10 grounds, giving the kind of etymology and the ripening results and so forth. And this is kind of a brief summary of the 10 grounds. If you're interested in learning more about those, you could look at the Chandrakirti's entry to the middle way and so forth. And so here then we turn to a summation, which comes in the next verse 461, beginning with the first line of that, wherein it says these 10 are renowned as the 10 bodhisattva grounds. So here, these that have just been explained, those 10 grounds, they are as is renowned in the Sutra of the 10 grounds. So that's the source of some of this is the Sutra of the 10 grounds, in which it explains individually these 10 grounds.
오야 당하죠 니바 들라 터도게 연대라 니세 더 산제 그 대도 시고라 상제서를 그지라 터도게 연대라 니서 산제제 연대 르르 세메버 때뭐 산제제 연대르르라 세메버 때뭐 다들 지금 신경 알아서 로이를 차르투에 강구를 텐데 요라 단단하죠 삼루나를 알아서 삼루 세셔를 지리마도 딜렌 데버 시자시 로리 지금 신치투에 가고 요라 예시 단이버 터두지 연대라니 산제지 연대 르르 세메버 때뭐 산제지 연대레레라야 데 연대데데 세 송데 알아서 세레 송체 어떻게 요래 되려고 요 말을 해야 간저 놀래잖아 최송도 매버치래 송거라 산제제 연대 체매바 땜바다 결라 이치신 심 깨바 결라 이치체고래서 뒤던달량 아주 뒤통도게 심 깨고래서 아니 담불랑이서 다 터두지 연대들 니세도 산제제 연대 타야바 dob주 땜바다서 된디 나면이시 연대 체매바 체매베 뺏 dob주다니 연대 체매베 뺏된 거라 다 당부들이다 당부를 가르치네 사제제 연대를 체매바 땜바 세트래 야 티버도 지주나 알레다마.
So here then we turn to a new section, which is the final good qualities, really talking about the final, the ultimate qualities of Buddhahood. And then this begins with looking at how each of the Buddha's qualities is limitless. And here then the causes for generating sort of a faith and belief, a confidence in the limitless good qualities of the Buddha. So here we begin with looking at how each of the Buddha's good qualities is limitless. Now, this is something where it's beyond our comprehension, really. Thinking about the various qualities of a Buddha, they can't arise in our mind. They don't fit within our mind. We can't know them exactly as they are because they are really inconceivable, or they're beyond, they're limitless. And so here, this comes then in the second half of verse 461, where it says that the Buddha's ground is different, in all ways immeasurably vast. And so here, although we can try to describe the various qualities of a Buddha, they are something that is really too vast, too extensive, immeasurable to even fit in our mind.
Oh, yeah. That did it, because Sanjay, the Tayeba, the Topchu, and it you say maybe best thing to say maybe best thing to the Tanzania do that in an Tambudera. Sanjay, you Topchu to shake to Sanjay Nambi Sashani is a number kundu share bar. Jashitene, Topchuta. Denba yimba tsamshichu se, o tinene topchu tsamshichu ba yensa. Sanje namje ngar she ba, sachu le shenba, sachu le shen, tenam kundu sheye se, sheli eba se, seme bar se. Ani gachewa tene, cho taye kyang, chur diba chidan taye bar de, tito da rob che su, tuni chunal tuni shene, sheki isu bara. Churi deba te top chuda demba imba tsamshido sebar chudo osa otich tuna.
So here it again beginning with looking at the Buddha's sort of qualities as being limitless, and that the Buddha's limitless good qualities depend on the 10 powers. Then comes in the second half of verse 461 and the next of these verses 462, the first half of that one. So it says, the Buddha's ground is different, in all ways immeasurably vast. It is merely called possessing 10 powers. So here, as was explained previously, those qualities of a Buddha, I mean, they're described on the 10 grounds, the kind of qualities that we're building, but really all of the various aspects and qualities of a Buddha are immeasurable, are sort of beyond our comprehension. And if we were to condense them, then one could merely say that they are encompassed or dependent upon the 10 powers.
Oh, yes, that chuchu rengi demba. Oh, yunde sholoka chuchu rengi tere. Teye tomne re yang se to, roa kwen she pato me. Tom re la ya kora yang chuk pa china, ane se me bonda yores, pato me bo yores. Sanje de tomne ne da ne ma imba chembe top ji chan, chembe top re yang tayebe. Roa kwen shindo pato me ba oso, yunde pato me ba, roa pato me ba nashi. O tini top te zu re la yunde pato me ba yores sembe. Pato me ba oso ya, tini. Tishi na.
No. So then the second half of 462 comes under this point of the example of how it is that these qualities are limitless. And it says, each of those powers is as limitless as the countless number of beings. So here, when it comes to measuring or calculating the kinds of qualities of a Buddha, their powers really, such as knowing what to do and what not to do, all of those various kinds of powers, the 10 powers of a Buddha that are symbolized by those, they are as incalculable as the number of sentient beings. In the way that the number of sentient beings is beyond measure or calculation, so too are those qualities exemplified, possessed by a Buddha, beyond any kind of measure or calculation.
야, 가발레다, 뭐시. 무슨 게 남제 어디를 주수 리숨디 말해. 상제 남제 체면이서 초는 그게 남과다 다 연대 체면봐 초리아 탐해봐 나시 연대를 탐해봐 그래서 사주 멜론치다 사주 멜론 그 띠울라서 뭐 장매봐 나시 상제지 연대를 디다 부여를 디마도 요마르세로 최송의 요마르세 대삼신도 줘봐 왜서 대삼도 줘봐 인세를 안에 제바 가도 상제 남제 연대 체매봐 니게 초는 그게 남가다 사주 멜론 체매봐 대삼시도 줘봐 왜서 야 티버도 시주나
So then in verse 463, it reads, "The limitlessness of a Buddha's excellent qualities is said to be like the limitlessness of space, earth, water, fire, and wind in all directions." And so the way in which the Buddha's qualities is immeasurable, is incalculable, is similar to the way that we can't express the sort of limit of the measurement of space and earth and water, fire, wind, and so forth, in the way that there's no sort of counting or calculating the kinds of various directions. So too, the Buddha's qualities are limitless.
야, 그만해서. 뭐, 그만해서. 그만둬. 다 주주리 손,
Nipa.
주주리 니들 와. 어,
Rishi.
아,
Chuchu Rishi.
주주리 필요해서 와.
Mm.
뭐 양도 되지. 다들 그래. 야, 저는 주주리 필요해.
Lare.
나 아는데 다 전에 당부 되지. 산재 주는데 세매가 다 양라. 도르도 때문에 단데도 뭐 그래서 뭐 당불섬 산재 유연데 세매배 시지도 시도 산재 유연데 세매배 규세데 아니 손은 세매배 소주 담아보시도 뭐게버지 다 당부도 가르쳐도 산재 유연데 세매배 시지들이다 당부도 산재 유연데라 최송에 요는 이제 딜레라고 요 말에서 최송에 요 말에서 대가래서 쇼로가 두주립 시들에 당분이 개대 균이 대점도 세명에도 마토나스 산재 남비 세매바 결라 이시 민주르에세 어디 가시도스나 산재지 연대 대점도 세지 최송 미니 버타세 다 산재 연대를 더저 들을 하고 요 말에서 최송에 요 말에서라 매배 주장 가르치네 개대 산재지 균이 세 대점도 세벌 송네 세매방에도 통나서 산재지 윤대지 규들이야 탑된 싫어서 세매바 개바 망볼이야 사네 근데시도 규 세매바래서 세송도 매버지어래 로로 매초래 그래서 어디인데 된 제부터 세매바 연구하래 규 세매바 표심서 봐라 균 대삼실로 그런 대삼을 라바 톡마르세시오 마라 어째서 내가 산재지연데 대점도 세지 세송민이 버탈 산재지연데를 내가 저래 tel라고 요 말을 세송도 말이서 대교생 가르스네 개대 산재지 균이 세 대점도 세버 송내 세매바 니도 통나서 줄이야 세매바래 줄에 최송에 전에 tel라고 요 말을 세르니 데부데 때다 템버숑구라 줄에 최송에 매버 인도사 아니 데불에 최송에 매르스 규센테레사 데부 산제 남제 연대 최매발라 이체바라 민주르에 산제제 연대데 규체매제 타예베체로사 오레테 이시 간데스게 그랬으나 규체매바 소사 규피숨서고 체매바 소사 텔리데 데푸숨서고 연구하래서 그래 야 되시구나
So then next we turn to the kind of causes for generating belief and faith in the limitless good qualities of the Buddha. And the reason why Buddha's good qualities are limitless is that the causal merits are limitless. So here this is divided into various kind of topics, but beginning with really the reason why the Buddha's good qualities are limitless is that the causes leading to them are limitless. And so this comes then in verse 464, wherein it says, if the causes are reduced to a mere measure and are not seen to be limitless, then one will not be confident that the good qualities of the Buddha are immeasurable. So there's really no way to quantify, to calculate all of the good qualities of a Buddha. They are generating these kinds of merits, virtues over countless eons, and they're objective and so forth. They're countless, immeasurable as well. And so therefore, when it comes to such an immeasurable, incalculable kind of result, it is the case that the causes that lead to it are countless, are immeasurable as well. If we were to say, oh, these are the causes and you don't need anything above and beyond that, this is sufficient, these are the causes, well, if the cause had a limit to it, then the result as well would be limited. But it is the case that we gain confidence in the limitless qualities of the Buddha by reflecting upon the fact that the causes that lead to such a result are themselves immeasurable, incalculable, limitless. So the way in which we can gain that kind of confidence is by recognizing that the causes that lead to the qualities of Buddhahood are themselves immeasurable or infinite.
뭐야? 다 두주랭가 되라. 더 말로 샌드메. 티치리 구수 최대기에서 산계지 구수다. 최대 링실라 소보 슈베 최대 당시거라. 쟁아 아니 거래. 쟁아 미야나 셴야 롱세. 아니 치수제바 니슈디에세 니지신도 되숨 주에세. 단디네 마셰베 오네야. 치기 치수제바 니슈도가 어디 산계 좀 된데 그 구수 요라 산계 꾸데던데 지서 야면에 산계 기를 세대 쇼베 최대인한테 그래서 어딘데 지금 된도스거나 더 구수 두den시 땡기 된도스거나 쟁아 야나 셴야 롱서 어디 쟁아래서 된되려야 산계 군대당 최대당 된데 되면 야는 내 셴야 가리나야 대수로 강야로 실라스거라 치수제바 니슈디스 원에 제베 측제 니슈쇼라 어디 네 니직신도 뒤숨 줘서 니마 직신 니마 따바르시 쇼게 닝고 공다 저래 몰람티 쳐고래서 뒤숨도 근데 간도스나 교수님 체매바시 괴베티시나 산계지 구수 당하세 주체매바다 수남 체매바 간데사 나라조 간데사 그래서 어디 취재 이슈들이 되려 나는 되네 구수도된 되도 아니 티치기네 수남 체매바 사그래서 나라조 생각 그래서는 주 수남 체매바시 괴베티시 산계지 구수당 최대지 쟁암 야나 초지신 개발시 박배 긴두 그저 수사 긴두 망부 초사로 진짜 리스트네 디그레스 그반도네 긴두라 소바 셴야루 원에 체베 원에 영에 지전이 수도서라 치수 제반이 수부디 니지가 뒤숨도 저거르차 오세 내숨 쇼게 공다 니구체 데데 그다 가리네 내숨 줘데 대다래 죄배 수능 타예배 처리 대대부 상계 타예버서 어떠네 나라조 대수능 타예버티 사나 네 대대부 타예버티 망반 좀 그래서 그래 야 티버티 주나
So then, turning to verse 465, we get to how it is the method for accumulating such limitless merit. And it reads, Therefore, each day, 3 times a day, before a statue, a stupa, or elsewhere, you should perform the recitation of the following 20 verses. So here below are going to come 20 verses that are to be recited either in front of a statue of the Buddha's body, a representation of the Buddha's body, speech, or mind. We could have a stupa filled with relics and so forth. Whatever it is that we want to use as a recollection of the Buddha. So again, it could be in front of the statue of a Buddha, or in front of a stupa containing relics, or even in front of the special field of the Sangha, a collection of the Sangha, and so forth. One should make this kind of recitation 3 times a day, like in the morning, at noon, and at night. And so when it comes to how we go about actually accumulating this immeasurable amount of merit that is needed for the goal of Buddhahood, we do so by, as it recommends here, reciting, for example, these 20 following verses in front of a representation of the Buddha's body, speech, mind, a statue, a stupa, and so forth, and do this 3 times a day. This is what we should engage in.
Oh yeah, tadi tanda tade top chuse de tanda dinal suma soare de.
Mm,
Chidan ko dinal kare yoresne yete tera.
mm,
Neta nemi kendo da seres.
mm,
Neta nemi ju kanle tene debu kan kigres ti sama chingi ora. Pene ju gewa chebale tene debu tewa yungurese. Ju gewa chebale tene debu tungen jonge nema yomarese. Neta judan debu namsa chinchimalu sama chingresera. Neta nemi kendo da asura. Tishi le na miluta le kansa ne debu nami kar kar togu ne ti sama chingres wara. Meba naso so tishe kamda samba kol karishe na kato karishe kudo che saba ya sham kande ko kolishe na kol paksha de ya yong do ti chingi warsa. Meba naso kendo ta naso kamne kendo ta kam naso ba. Tishi wangjo cho mangi sera wangbo cho da shirab chimbu da jingde tezu kanga kenen tela pagwa che so tu wara. Tishi wangjo cho me kendo tamje do roa kemba sera. Ane tishi wangjo cho me tamje kendo. kamda simje düje du kawake da kawake meba da tezu kanga chingire ta tenda che she bale koya ge düje kamda samba da bala ne düje de kando ke yoba tanda kawake ma ba kawake ba tezu sama de chinji malo ba kanga chingi ora o de top chute da sangel tumu mai ba düje kamda samba da bala ne chita wa shin du ke ne te da tele tumbe ni che so ete ngora top chuse te dinal tanda sombu do de o te 가서 내가 내면 kindo다 대신 내가 매번 나서 또 나도 감는 kin도 또 니치 따들 되래 어 근데 요때 심하고 야 산제지 연대 팀은 많이 버셔서 tudani 용구라 어 tin데 버셔 내가 될 없잖아
So here above, we had been talking about the 10 powers, but they aren't actually listed out here. So here, the 10 powers then of a Tathagata or of a Buddha are knowing what is possible and what is not possible. As in, they have an exhaustive knowledge of what causes lead to what results. So they have the kind of knowledge of, well, when you engage in virtuous actions and what are virtuous actions, that will lead to a positive result. And if you engage in a non-virtuous action, well, you're going to experience a suffering result. So understanding that kind of process of causality exhaustively, knowing it completely, is therefore the knowledge of knowing what is possible and what is not possible. Then knowing the results of actions is really referring to how a specific ripening result relates to a specific kind of an action that was done to create that. And then there is knowing the kind of aspirations or dispositions of beings. So having the kind of knowledge of what will be good to teach a particular being, what will accord with the kinds of imprints that they have, with the state of their mind. And this is also related to the next one, which is knowing the elements, kind of knowing how various beings are disposed, as well as the next, which is knowing the higher higher and lower powers of humans. So knowing where various beings' minds are at in order to be able to teach accordingly is a very important component of all of these powers. And so then there is the kind of knowledge of knowing the paths that lead everywhere, knowing as well the origin of the kleshas or our afflictions. So, what are the kinds of meditations that we can do to get out of them? Knowing the previous lives of sentient beings. So, having the kind of knowledge of where various beings came from and where they are going in order to be able to really benefit them in accordance with their particular situation. Knowing as well the kind of knowledge of transference and death. So, where one will go after one has died, and knowing the exhaustion of the various afflictions. So these are the kinds of powers that are exclusive to a Tathagata or a Buddha that allow them then to have these kinds of limitless qualities as was described above. So it's important for us to know what those are.
Oh yeah, that's somebody yala temba tuti temba so do one.
Mm,
So say ke kebar shinde kar se yala tuti. Majo
mhm.
oti to tuti su temba se. Oti to da. Sanje chö da kin de da se. Chanju semba nam la ya se. Number de nam gu tuti kyap chine. Chö nam la cha che los. Oti tambu yala temba te ko shek do. Sanje chö da kin de da se kunjo somba se ra. Chanju semba nam la ya se ra. Namba kundu tüde se tüde namba kundu kushep sendira shebla tüde japchi ne se jamdu che kunjo somla jamdu che sanje chuda kindu da chanju semba kindu so namliya jamdu che namba kundu tüde kushep da che de japchi ne se jamdu chu namla cha che los o de japchi do ko ne cha che wa de se do tambude Tin deba malo se sanje da long da tokbe chö da sanje kyap tem ba bol sanje ga ma long gi ko ne chö ten ne tokbe tem ba so so nyam le che ti che so so ke o da pa be kin de da chanju sem ba nam le ku sum ku ne tu de kyap su che ne chö nam le cha sa los o kin de la so so ke kin de yong go de rab ti chung al so ba da ke wa tung ge Pagbe kende da pagbe kansa kende yungure. Chanju sembe kende yungure chanse pagba tende tebo. Te tsangla kosum kube kone tüde rwa cha chene. Tepsu chene choyo namla cha che loos. O tangbo dich dana wa.
So then, turning to verse 466, this begins then teaching in brief the seven limb practice or the seven-part practice. So here, when we ask, well, how do we accumulate such vast amount of merit, such immeasurable merit? It's really through the practice of the seven-part practice. And so this begins then with honoring in all ways the Buddhas, the Dharma, the Sangha, and also the Bodhisattvas. To them I go for refuge and pay homage to those worthy of homage. So here it first lists out these three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, showing respect, sort of bowing down, but respectfully with one's three doors. One makes this kind of homage or prostration to the three jewels by way of going to them for refuge, really recognizing their qualities as protectors. So here we have the Buddhas as well as the Dharma, the holy Dharma of scriptures and realizations. And for the Sangha, there are those that are ordinary beings. We can have those who are ordained, who are not yet Arya beings. We have Arya beings as well as Bodhisattvas. And bowing down respectfully with one's three doors, one goes for refuge and pays homage to those worthy of homage.
O da tanda ko cha cha wa da tindu so cheba ni tindu so.
Mm.
Cha cha wa da chö che si ni do ra. Da di ba sha ba tingu da. Yala tu de nam di ga zo. Jingi so da chö ji de na tu su ji ba me se ge ge da ma. Di ra. Yala tin ba ga zo chin de ge ba ho di na shi chi som da na tin de do. 차차와다 쳐봤던 데서라. 다 띠바샤와들다. 띠바래는 더 계신세. 소남 탐제 용수 송세. 네 르제 끈제 소남 다세. 그라 제소 일랑오세. 오 제소 일한데라 차차와다 최지샤보다 제소 일한세 된거도. 어디 가서도 띠바 다는 더 계신 띠바를 샤바체. 소남 탐제 용수 송세 개와 탐제도 용수야로. 류제 군지 소남다 류제 군지 상계다 자주 선보다 소소기고 간대지 개와사기나 또 정말 제수이란 제서로 제수이란 것에 찾아와다 최지샤보다 제수이란 세다 아 대과 샤바데 연구도 찾아와다 최샤보다 제수이란 연구도 한디나래 된 레벨 거르스는 랑게 대과 지치바 탐제 또 시탐에 대과 네네 도바르 기셔서 소소 대과 통만 매번에 사셔베 대과도 강가 님부터 시점에 꺼내니 샤바쳐 그래서 거라 그러니까 도시 샤바치시 신바다 추dim다 공발에 좀 소남 탐제 용수 소화를 끼고서 아니 르제 권지 소남 다 끌라 끌라 데이터부 개와 예바 아래래 냠도 제수이라면서 콘주텐데 개와야 보사는 빼야보라서 제수이라 저거래서 그래 차제와다 최제 샥바다 제수이라 세든도다 샥바제다 제수이라 야 대신도나
So here, then we turn next to the practice of confession and rejoicing. So the first verse, 466, encapsulates the first two of the seven branches of prostration, and offerings are included within that as well. So we recite the seven-limb practice in many different ways, like the King of Prayers, for example, or other sort of contexts. There are prayers that have these seven limbs. And so normally when we say like we dedicate whatever merit we have accumulated through prostrating, offering, rejoicing, confessing, requesting, beseeching, and so forth, we dedicate all of that towards perfect enlightenment. Now here we begin this second verse of this by confession. So it says, I turn away from all negativity and embrace all kinds of merit. I rejoice in all the merit amassed by all sentient beings. So whatever negativities that we ourselves have done, we should purify them by way of the complete four opponent powers. So having those four opponent powers and sincerely confessing our negativities, we are able to purify them. And then we should rejoice in whatever kind of virtuous actions we ourselves have done, generosity, ethical conduct, and meditation, and so forth, whatever virtues that we have amassed from all of those sorts of activities, as well, we should rejoice in all of the virtues that are done by other embodied beings. Whatever sort of merit sentient beings, embodied beings have done, we should think about them and think, oh, how wonderful. We should really sincerely give rise to joy in those virtues that are done by other sentient beings.
뭐야 다쇼로가 도주를 깨되다
Mm.
아니 지도 탈자돼서 지위 뜨대 타무자네 라고 타무자네서 최제 콜레다 상계마다네 단데 최모선의 쇼된게 뜻돌이야 최송로지에서 먼저 상계 좀 된데 상계선의 최모선의 쇼는 창보다 개진도 최송로지 쇼도 어디네 생각하죠 초주 상계 장매봐 상계의 쇼된게 망보여래 최사부디 현달을 간대셔보네 시에는 고토 말해서 근데 공단계 정말이야 최소로 나와서 소소 소았다네 오 시에기 시에서 무슨로 상계 쇼대서도 소소야 늘려 여배 삼을다 네가 쉬냐 그러니까 최세기 송배 뒤체제 시에기 시에 삼사 매버셔라 근데 내려다 쇼로가 두주를 깨대 다니 지도 지도디서라 차차니 지도 소소 뇌지 그 도시 때 지위 때문에 샤블야 때문에 굴을 마셔서 지위 때문에 탈자데 타모자네 최지 콜로 콜레다 최지 최소로 나와서 네 돈에 봐도 냥엘에 대고 다 되자시다 팀에도 냥엘에 대be 추때는 거기를 좀 공식에 들을 단다 쇼는 최소로 나와서 냥엘에 메다 소왔다 버더라 돈에 봐 Sandroa ci si pe ko ko de ne to ne ta da pe shurona chisurona ya so ta gyora do ne pa do shule to togbe sanje namla sol se so ta gure se gora cha jo de chi sha ba da chi se de kul shi so an de ba ni bu ten gu do chong ko wa ku wa ta yang hele me da so ta ba de ni gu do ten de ba ma lo sha ne de gu da ne chi u la so be ya la nge tu de se ya la nge cha se se do an nam ji ma zo 살려야지 뛰네. 차체 저도 넘버 저거 상 게네 정도 말은배 최지 콜로 코어 메제바 때달에 최지 콜로 콜레다 쉬고 서로 나와서 양에 나와 쉐바 터줄래다 공부 쪽에 있음 제바 저기 있음 터줄 단다 양을 만들어지 서로 쉬로 나와서 지시 좋아하네 봐 지시도 숙발해도 지시 코알라 코딩에 심지어 여버도 정말 여여 봐도 저도 람색견이 수로 나와서 수화답게 와라 숙발해도 저거 상계 남라 소한데 소세 어디버도 지구나 쉬지셔도 제수랑 끝이 소한데 많이 못된 것도 안양헬림도 소왔다 왔다 천국과 그 같아요.
So then next comes, and sometimes I'll mix these up, but beseeching to teach the Dharma and requesting not to pass into nirvana. So sometimes I say requesting and beseeching, but those two then come in this next verse, 468, which says, with bowed head and palms together, I beseech all perfect Buddhas to turn the wheel of Dharma and remain as long as beings remain. So here, this request to turn the wheel of Dharma, making the beseeching the Buddhas, please turn the wheel of Dharma. One does so through a kind of respectful gesture, placing the hands together and bowing one's head. I mean, it's sort of, the language implies that the crown of your head goes down to their feet, making this kind of respectful gesture. And requesting that the Buddha teach is something that happened initially after he had gained enlightenment, when Brahma and Indra and so forth made this request that the Buddha teach, that he turn the wheel of Dharma to benefit beings. And so thinking that we are in the presence of these Buddhas, imagining that we are actually in their presence, we should imagine making this kind of request. Please continue to teach the Dharma, and imagine as well that they accept your request, that they are going to stay and remain and continue to teach the Dharma. And so here, bowing down respectfully with the sort of 5 points of your body. So again, that would be like the two hands, knees, and one's crown, with palms folded together in front of those who are to manifest Buddhahood. It says, please, without delay, turn the wheel of the Dharma. And in order that you might be able to remain for as long as beings remain, don't pass into nirvana, but remain here with us sentient beings who need these kinds of teachings. So making that sort of request that the Buddha first turn the wheel of Dharma and not pass away into nirvana then comes in this verse.
오야 다 솔로가 투수리 꾸데르다. 대다리 기베 선남다. 다 모아들 모 차세와다 최진 샤바다 제수이라 꾸이소 개와주이다. 탐제 쪽에 전주 전부 모셔야더라. 모아들에도 등바리 어디 가시다스나. 대다리 기베 선남다. 다게 기다. 마기다 마음반에 기브리 줘시거라. 되네 semjen 탐제장. 라메 전주 semjen 쇼세. ngāji simje tamje lāna mebe chanchu toba shos te chidu ngāisi. Kondo sheba te da tāgi jibe sunam dāng, te ngāri penche tāgi jiba dāng, tata Yeshi Maobana Kibra give a sonum, the Sama Kungura, Giver give a sonum Kai, but Simjan Tamja Lana maybe Chanjula maybe Simdan Denver show chick bao, so what in the morning Jawris, Tamja over Chanju Chimbo, so water there. Rangatama de Lisani Keta left to Sagu, Ranzo, Labinali Guru, Kasra. Sajan, you need to be yellow to Momentis. Tikpa saye chaya ta, so saye ta, tikpa chaya kwe, nenga chishu titiri dara, tikpa penye chambure, samlu tan, tinga zu ke chigmara, ti yala timba sete, o ti pe chimba. Chache wata asade, cho chuna shube, sanje kawa shune, tsamalya, susu ya, ngosu tin diwili chare, baba chawura, o di ya shune ya, sheri shesu samsana tinde che, chache rawa. Ani choba piya chare chusha. Jesu Iranche, Kewa Sama Sanje, the Chanju Sabata, Simje Sosu Kewa, Kanda Saviore. Sama Paya would ask some attendant, love Chimbashus, Kewa Saviore. Kela Jesu Iran Chodunga Sido. Sosu the Toban Danda Regina and Danda Togu Sigore, Jesu Iranchena. Men and Ying Tokpan and teacher and Raleigh Hava in a day, Kewan Danda Top Sigdo. So Kela Jesu Iran Chodungas, Kale Jamugo, Sosu Shen, Nanju Trado Chigra. Mission that you yaga chicken and the Tadoche, some tangra, Nami tangra, coach and a cario, Hale, Yomar Samgra, Kulabjinra, Shensim Jetamject and the Kakarachiguna, Chanju Samba the Kajitami Mayora, Suzuki Kajakaziora, somebody chase Rachana, just some shin and the church, Sunam side, Pim, shut and show about same of Messiah Yora. And the same about Tangimara, Tawasi, oh, Yoris, Shaggy, so many. When I done it, so other chatty teacher and some same as I were. Chesuranda. Sanje some time they do the Chesurana Shuche. Sanje some Shuyora, Kingera. Naranzo de left to your mother, I just saw a malata with the Conga Kingera, Congera. Ah, Coach Kujora kept to some Congera. Similar thoughts to saw as lecture some 2 gigra. In others, okay, give it now a young mother. Sanje Kanga Kingera, Kanga Change Sira. Sango Chacha Wada, Cheba Piadera. Tina and Trube Cheba Cho. Namjurangi Tiba Kewatum, the Kitchen of Karichigana, Titsamaya Piety. Trube Cheba Chodra, Chita Penjo that is a day. Penjo only you and I didn't manage it, and make Cheba Pio, someone cheers you, Ranchan and Danda of Gura, Yingtawan Sena. Is a music Kuchimbura and the Quake Omara. Chacha Wada, Church Shabbat, Chesuira. Kuishi, so on the young Messiah. Kewa Pangoache. Nhưng thâu bên này ngồi của đó, sáng giờ của bạn tôi về chơi lịch chơi chơi xong, ngồi sáng nay tí tuần đó đủ rồi đấy. Chú cháu cái đấy chỉ là tí chăm chút mà lấy số na, bắt sát chân tuần đủ rồi. Tí này sinh ngàn trong ngõ chơi sáng na,当他去的三届国防特别去了这个嘛，去的马中的讲究来说呢，80%的有个了，超过差这个了。我第那些说给我的三届国防特别去了这个了，因为他把那我个了，说跟我呢，我今天都是刚刚，反正是什么个啊，得看见都是查出来的，确实了，而且他们这做个先去先问我先，等一下呢这个上班了，等一下的国美的。Comedy看了月中的哈古月中的人都是其实老个了，这三路东啊是个嘛都是，这东西的那第三是个嘛了，对这不是我就想的可能刚个得着的，后来这么多，这东大的三路东，说三路东也得帮着嘛，只用的那一个人提下来，可是我看人的三路东我的当不的当提下来，当然就三不的三路东也得有啥，但得呢这个啥。这是那啥了，等下的做马路南北去的，那就那边西这边那有个哇，去的了送药的是，做下家关没长时的送不那边去一档是，可是去的什么什么档呢？就是当什么做钱的去这个的是了，是吧？可是每个大爷就那么的做钱去什么个的是了。可是等的那边工作说的这边生病呗，确实得早起有的些了。 Nāmbā kārēs nē sēm sāmla tāyā tī tsōgā rī chērā. Dōyā tē kōn dōyā tē tōndā tē sēm tāyā kūrī māngī zāni sōsō tī nā shī sāmla tāngā yorā. Tōndā sēm kī sāmla tāngā yorā. Shākyā kūmē tāmsā tē stā tā tē lōne chū chī sī sūm rī chī duwa. Tōndā nāmbā shī tē tsōgā sāmla tāyā tē sēm bē tī chē tē rē tē duwa. Tē dāmbā dōyā tsōgā chē nā nī shēndā nā shī rē duwa. Bē dāmbā dōyā dāmbā dā tōni yāgu duwa yīndā yāgu rā yāgu mārī sī kio mārdā. Tsōgā tī kē chē rē sū kio rā. Oye, bangda sta ya rangi chila. Lota wa che shati.
So Geshe may have forgotten a little bit about the translator. So here, then we turn to verse 469, which is the dedication. So again, whatever sort of it reads here, through the merit of doing this and the merit I have done and will do, may all sentient beings be endowed with unsurpassed bodhicitta. So here, like we see in the kind of short, very abbreviated 7 limbs, where we say, whatever small amount of virtue that I may have accumulated through prostration and offering, confession, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I dedicate all of this to perfect enlightenment. And so this practice of the 7-part practice is considered to be so important, to be so powerful. And this is something that we really should take seriously. We should do in a very serious way. We should see the importance of this. And so if we imagine all of the Buddhas and all of the 10 directions and really think about the virtues that they do, let alone ordinary sentient beings, how much virtue they engage in, if we ourselves are to rejoice in that, we gain such a powerful amount of merit. It's said that if we rejoice in the merits of someone who is sort of equal to us, we are able to accumulate an equivalent amount of merit. And even if we are to rejoice in the kinds of virtues of someone that's maybe higher up than us, if we do so in a really sincere way, we can get such virtue as theirs for ourselves. But most of the time, we really are jealous of other people's good actions, right? Rather than rejoicing in them and feeling a sincere kind of joy, we have this kind of attitude of jealousy. Either we're jealous or we don't even pay attention to the good that others do. And so let alone really we would have such the opportunity to make a ton of merit, but we are constantly under the control of our various afflictions, either that we don't think about the merits of others in a way where we sincerely pause and rejoice in them. We don't have a feeling about the good that they are doing, or even worse than that, we feel a kind of jealousy towards them. But really, when we think about doing things like rejoicing in the virtues of others, this is something that is extremely pleasing to the Buddhas, right? We are constantly surrounded. I mean, all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions are here. We are in their presence, right? Wherever the Buddha's mind is, so too is a Buddha. And they have omniscience, right? They know all. And if we are to engage in this really sincere practice of rejoicing and of all of the rest of the 7 limbs, but rejoicing as well, they will be pleased. They will recognize the kind of practice that we are doing. And really, when we think about all of these of the 7 limbs, this is something that is quite easy and not so difficult for us to do. But the best kind of offering that we can make, I mean, here in these 7 limbs, we do a prostration and we do offerings and so forth. But the best offering that we can make to the Buddhas is our own practice, really accomplishing what it is that we are trying to, not just sort of saying the words, but doing this in a heartfelt way that is really sincere and from the depths of our heart. And so when we make a kind of dedication too, it shouldn't be something where we're just sort of saying the words, but really thinking about the virtues that we ourselves have done in the past, that we are doing, that we will do, and those of others, and kind of gathering them together and dedicating them towards the enlightenment of all, that's sort of like putting a drop of water into an ocean, wherein that as long as that ocean remains, so too will that drop of water. It's not going to dry up or be gone. But really, doing this kind of practice is something where we often just sort of run through it like saying the words, right? We just sort of recite it and we go through it without actually thinking of it much. That's not the point at all. Really, the recitation of this is to help us keep it straight and keep going in the right direction. But the main point is what we are thinking about, actually thinking about the meaning of the words and generating a feeling to go along with that. So often we get caught in this habit of just like, da, 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 we just say the words, we just recite it, but we throw away the thinking part of it. It's like, oh, reciting this is enough. I don't need to actually pause and contemplate on it or really meditate upon it. But the main point is that the words are sort of like the scaffolding to be able to do the meditation, to do the thinking about it. And so this is something that we really should keep in mind. It's not just about doing a recitation, it's about evoking something within that mind, trying to change our feelings in some way. So here, I won't get the exact verse, but from Arya Deva's 400 verses, he talks about there are different styles of Dharma practice, right? The Shakyapas, the Buddhists, it's about Dharma is mainly mind. There are some whose practice is mainly visual, as in like, what are you doing with your body? And there's some whose practice is mainly recitation. They're just saying words. But when it comes to, it's not as though it's bad to look at what you're doing or to be reciting various things, but for Buddhists, the mind is the principal thing. So just intoning the words itself is not sufficient. We have to really pause and think about them. The words are a sort of avenue to get that meaning to arise within our mind. And so we shouldn't just be content to recite some words, but rather we should really think about the meaning behind them. That's the entire point of doing that.
Oh yeah. Chukchu couldn't do so.
Lare,
Chukchu couldn't do so. Oh yeah,
Dixon.
oh this. That down Demba. Oh yeah, Mudira. Tunda kon Demba then do some Tunda the summer time education Boresi or that. Demba the Dongmarisi or Mare. Chuna Kane Manduna did Demba the Tunda ko summer time Jamachin and Rigora. Indes, Ratila Inde, Nande Indes. 이 배샤코랑 signation도네 나네 랍기와라 디네시코 삼을타지 칸에 만드네 되거라 디 야보레 되어라 단 덤베데위네 티냠도 소소 셈기 삼을탄기 당기 전에 티케션 보레시와라 오야 티chen 티주 찬스야 대샤샤
So here, the point I want to make is that it's very important that we think while we do recitation, right? It's not that we shouldn't do recitation or that recitations are bad, but that we should really focus on the meaning of what we are reciting, not just saying the words of it. So when we talk about reciting something, we can talk about verbal recitation and also kind of mental recitation. It's not so important that we say those actual words as that we have that kind of thought. So we can go through a practice doing it in a kind of a mental way, a mental recitation. And that's really the most important thing, is that when we use or when we recite something, that we are using that as an opportunity to really create that meaning within our mind. That's very important. So I would just like to emphasize that. And we are unfortunately out of time for today, so we will leave it there after verse 469.
오야 다트 찬스 오야 투치
Thank you, Genla Tutiche, and thank you, Katrina, for your
오야 나서
interpretation. And a few announcements. Next week, there's no class because of Labor Day. We'll have a retreat here at the Abbey. And also keep in mind, mark your calendars, October 23rd through 30th. Geshe Thabkhe will be here at the Abbey teaching Gen Rinpoche, Prayer to be Reborn in the Land of Bliss. Katrina will be here also. And if you'd like to join us, please sign up. And if you'd like to help sponsor Geshe-la's air tickets for these teachings, you can find the donate button on our webpage and let us know how you'd like to designate your donation in that way. And so we will now finish with some heartfelt dedications.
May the spiritual teachers lead me on the sacred path and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lobsang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Rana Mandala Amyatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi get born, arise, and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Recording stopped.